Okay.
But it's more spontaneous,
Yeah.
okay? Excusez-moi, je vais
Good morning. Hale Esfandiari, the director of the Middle East program at the Wilson Center. We are delighted that you all could come and brave the drizzle and grim weather of Washington to come by to this meeting. In the past, we have co-sponsored quite a number of meetings with the World Bank and especially with Nadereh Chamlou. She has been a very good friend and supporter of our gender program, and whenever she has had interesting speakers coming to the bank, she got in touch with us and offered them to us. So today we are very pleased to have two top experts in the field with us, Soukeina Bouraoui and Mona Khalaf. They had a two-day meeting on Saturday and Sunday at the World Bank, and today's meeting is really to discuss with us their conclusion and what they discussed there and what they had worked on. I'm not going to talk about Kausar and not JERPA and NJED and PGN. I'll let the speaker talk about all these issues. Our first speaker is Nadereh Chamlou. She's the senior advisor at the World Bank's Middle East and North Africa region for knowledge and economic and sector work. And in this capacity, she leads the region's gender agenda. Nadereh has extensive cross-sectoral and cross-country experience in her 25 years with the World Bank. She has worked in technical and managerial position in areas as economic management, private sector development, financial sector development, oil, gas, telecom, power, infrastructure, environment, accounting, and auditing, corporate governance, and the knowledge of economy. So you see what a vast field of expertise she's bringing to her new job. Soukeina Bouraoui, to my right, is the executive director of the Center of Arab Women for Training and Research, a regional organization based in Tunisia, which promotes the status and role of women in development in the Arab region. And she's also a professor of law in the Legal, Political and Social Studies Department at the University of Tunis. Her areas of expertise are criminal law, civil law, environmental law, human rights, gender justice, and globalization. And she headed the Department of Civil Law and Criminal Science from 1987 to 1991. Mona Khalaf is Assistant Professor of Economics at the Lebanese American University. She served from 1997 to 2005 as the director of the Institute for Women's Studies in the Arab world at the Lebanese American University. She's also a coordinator of the World Bank's Gender Consultative Council in the MENA region. She's a member of the advisory board of the Gender Economic Research and Policy Analysis Initiative, JERPA, established by the World Bank, and Kausar in 2006. And finally, I would like to also welcome my good old friend, Baqir Namazi. It's nice to see him here. When we parted last time, I think it is over 5 months ago, it was not under very auspicious circumstances. I'm delighted he's here, and I don't know if it's up to him to discuss what the experience in Iran regarding this program was or not. It's up to you. We'll leave it up to you. This meeting is webcast, so as we are talking, people around the world can pick it up and watch it. So I will start with Nadereh, and maybe each of our speakers should speak, for 20 minutes?
20.
Yeah.
I was thinking about 10, but that's okay.
Okay, 20 minutes, and then we'll open the meeting to questions and comments. Is that okay with both of you?
Yes.
It's up to
Maybe
you.
we could cut the 20 to 10 to 15.
Usually when I say 15, speakers speak 20. So I said 20 so I can bring down the guillotine at 20.
You're scaring us.
No, we don't want to.
Okay, it's up to
You
you.
have some experiences in...
Very much so. Okay. Nadereh, the floor is
Thank you.
yours.
Thank you very, very much. Good morning, and thank you very much for this very kind introduction and also the kind invitation to be here. I feel very much at home at the Woodrow Wilson Center, so it's like coming home. Thank you also for helping us with getting the messages that we were trying to develop over the last 2 days to the broader public in Washington D.C. Because I think that very often we meet in the region, and we meet, for instance, at the World Bank, but we don't have really the capacity of somehow perhaps interacting with networks that are in the United States and networks that are very critical in developing a perception of the Middle East, and perhaps even, the networks that interact with policymakers who do work on the Middle East. And as a result of that, perhaps, there are some certain kinds of preconceptions, misperceptions, I would say maybe caricaturization that is taking place in the West of the women, or of the women's question, or of the women's status in the Middle East. And unfortunately, this sort of like this misperception or this caricaturization is not always very helpful in finding ways in helping the women in the Middle East. Most of you know, and I know that all of you, or most of you, are not only interested but also very active in gender issues in the Middle East, and it's the most complex matter. It's the most complex matter because it goes back through history, thousands and thousands of years. It's not really anchored that much in the religions and of this, but it's in the culture or in the historical culture it's in the historical DNA of the Middle East. I was reading a book recently, and the book has been around for quite some time, by Leila Ahmed, but I was rereading it, and it said that the secondary status of women was encoded in the Code of Hammurabi, which is 2,000 years before Christ. So, in other words, it has been there for so many, I would say, millennia, and it's going to be a very, very difficult task to overcome or to change this. However, we need to find ways. We need to find very practical ways, very effective ways in making some changes and making some bringing about a more egalitarian environment for both sexes, in the Middle East. What I would like to speak about is, very briefly, is about what I would see as a very basic challenge. Much of the discussion in the Middle East and much of the activities that I see in the Middle East have been focusing on women's family rights and, let's say, divorce rights, inheritance rights, and so on and so forth. But and a lot of attention has been given to education and health, improving education and health. But from where I sit and from the statistics that I look at, I find that while these issues are very, very important, we are missing out on an equally important dimension of women's empowerment, and that is women's economic empowerment. When we look at the statistics, we see, for instance, that the woman of the Middle East is not only as educated, if not more educated. Education is a problem for everybody. Education is even a problem for my children who live in one of the best school districts in this country. But education is always a problem, and education is a problem for men and women. But when we look at sort of like averages, we see that, for instance, the woman of the Middle East is as educated, if not more, than women, the average women in other regions of the world. And she is as educated, if not more, than the man in the Middle East. But when it comes to empowerment, be it both decision-making in society or even economic presence, she falls far behind her peers in other regions. When we look at, for instance, also the Beijing platform, we see that among the 12 points of the Beijing platform, the one area that actually worldwide has had the least amount of, or the least degree of progress, is the economic empowerment of women. So while everything else has been going on, we have been missing out on the economic empowerment. So the focus that I would like to bring to this discussion, or to this, the focus that I have been trying to bring to this debate, is that let's not forget the economic empowerment of women, because of two reasons. One is that it is relatively easier to advance, and we have rights and certainly legitimacy of addressing these issues within Islam, within all the other religions in a way, than, for instance, some of the, let's say, divorce laws, and which are very, very important. I'm not saying that they are not important. The family rights are very, very important. But so are of course, also these economic rights. And we have not been making enough use of these economic rights. That is the problem. We have these rights, but we have not been making enough use of these economic rights. The second reason why I think this angle is important is because of the fact that there is a lot of, there is a huge, because perhaps due to the high oil prices, also there is a big growth in the region. The growth rates have, increased from, let's say, 3 to 4% in the early 2000, or even in the 1990s, to almost 7 or 8% in currently. So these growth rates require a lot of reform in the economic agenda. For instance, reforms of the labor laws, reforms of the investment laws, of the banking laws, of many assets that are necessary in order to allow the private sector to grow, allow the economies to grow. And it is now a good opportunity for us to add to these reforms the gender perspective, the gender dimension that is not there or has not been there in the past. For instance, let me give you an example. It is very much known that in case, for the purposes of creating a more robust private sector, there has to be privatization. The privatization of old, let's say, state-owned enterprises. And in order to, for instance, privatize these companies, one needs to bring about, these countries are developing a new, for instance, pension system. Because, the pension system of the old state-owned enterprises, of these workers that work in state-owned enterprises, have to be now transferred to the private owners. Now, when you look at the old pension laws, you see that women are terribly discriminated. For instance, not only do they have to retire earlier, many people think that it is an advantage to retire earlier, like, on average, women retire 5 years earlier than men. But then also the other point is that women cannot, for instance, pass on their pensions to their husbands and to their children once they die. This is a very important kind of angle to look at in order to bring equality. Because if you are going to treat women equally in old age, or equally you have to treat them also equally when they're young. And by highlighting that, because of this discrimination is not helping not only the women, but much more, it's not helping their families. We're bringing a different perspective that very few people can really disagree with. It's not, people will not disagree with when you say, well, it's the husband who's going to be, be disadvantaged because of this discrimination against the woman. And there are many other economic laws that outwardly have a differential treatment between women and men. And our view is that by perhaps raising these issues at the time when these reforms are taking place, when these governments are, for instance, looking at their investment laws and seeing that, for instance, that there is discrimination against women in some ways. For instance, you have to have the husband to come and sign off on the investment license and so on. That perhaps what we could do is we could strengthen the rights in the economic and in the public sphere, and hopefully this will take over also in the other spheres of their lives. Just one example to tell you that just working on the family laws per se is not enough. Morocco has really made a very, very, I would say, courageous and very revolutionary, has taken a very revolutionary step in changing the family law. However, at the time or throughout this period where we have been, where they have had tremendous success in creating a more egalitarian environment for women, the labor force participation of women has declined by 5%. And it's not, I'm not talking about, the labor force participation having been at 70% and declining to, let's say, 65%. We're talking about the labor force participation that was already low, maybe 27, 28%, declining to about 22%. So in other words, it's just not enough to work on the family law alone if we don't look at the other side as well. And when you look at it, you say, okay, would a woman, even with greater rights to, let's say, get out of a bad marriage, would she get out of a bad marriage if she doesn't have a job? Would she get out of a marriage if she cannot take care of her family? So in other words, we need to really look at these issues at the same time, and perhaps by focusing on the economic rights, we can impact women's power, the bargaining power of the woman at the family level, and of course through that create a bit bigger and higher degree of, I would say, empowerment, not only empowerment, but a greater degree of control over the family and control over her own life. The objective that we were trying to achieve with this new initiative that the World Bank started about 2 years ago together with Kautar, the Gender, Economic and Policy Analysis, is precisely to try to find ways of incorporating gender issues into the economic discourse, which was not really that present in the past, to really integrate gender much more systematically and effectively into the economic discourse, which the economic decision makers look at. The economic decision makers may not look at anthropological, let's say, studies, or they may not be looking at other very, very important, other disciplinary work, but they may be looking at the economic, let's say, analysis, at economic reports, economic, let's say, papers. And we want to kind of try to integrate into this economic thinking the gender perspective and hopefully influence the economic policy makers through a better, I would say, treatment of the gender issues within what they would consider to be important, and show the economic costs and the economic benefits of integrating women more effectively. I think I will stop here, and I don't know how it did on my time, but thank you.
Thank you very much, Nadereh. Can I remind you to close your cell phones, please? And then I'll now turn the floor to Soukeina.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Really, it's a pleasure to be here and to be among friends, colleagues, and persons interested by the women in the region. I think that the conditions and the statutes of Arab and Persian and Muslim and non-Muslim women in our region is really a critical issue related to the human condition and to human rights in the world. And I want to start maybe to say that Kautar is the Center for Arab Women for Training and Research, and is based in Tunisia. But I wanted to point that it's a unique, it's the only one and unique statutes in the Arab world because it's an international NGO. It means that we are an independent center, and I think that this independency is a critical condition to speak and to tell what we are. And also, I think that based on this independency, we can have real and authentic debates with governmental bodies and civil society, private sector and media in the region. I think that this autonomy and this independency is very critical in our region because everyone wants to use the women's statutes for political objective. And maybe if we open the dialogue and if we create a democratic debate, we can also discuss not only on our culture, but also on our religion. Because after all, we have the right to discuss on anything. It's a human rights. And for us, it's very important to have this freedom of expression. I think that it is the first right in the world. Now, what is Kautar? Kautar is a center of research, NGO, based in Tunisia, with an immunity, diplomatic immunity. I think it's very important that you know that, because this is the guarantee of the freedom of the expression and of the circulation and for everything. And also, I said that Kautar is unique because in our statutes, in our board, we invited governmental bodies as the Arab League, NGO, Arab NGO as ACFund, but also international and very famous institution, an important institution as the World Bank, but also the UN institution as UNDP, UNIFEM and UNFPA, to be in our board. It means that we create, through this specific board and this unique board, a unique space to debate on what we are discussing. Because every year we present our progress report, our annual report, our findings, and also we present our strategic vision for the future. And like that, they are involved, men and women in this institution, represented the UN institution, the World Bank, the ACFund, the Arab institution, the Arab League, the Tunisian government, because we have, as hosted country, we invited also the governmental Tunisian to be in the board, with the transparency that we need in this region. We discuss every topics and even what we are discussing now. And I think that it's really fill a gap, fill a need in this region, not only the Arab region, but maybe also the Persian region. Now, I want to say that the center is scientific center. And we want to build scientific knowledge, scientific evidence, to advocate on this, to advocate to reach not only the policymakers. We want to reach first the policymakers, but I think that we need also to reach the civil society, because we know that after all, we always want to reach the policymakers, and the World Bank also wants to reach the policymakers, and all UN and so on, they push us to reach the policymakers. But you know, even if in our countries, all these policymakers, the official and the governmental policymakers are more authoritarian than democratic, even if they are like that, all are under the influence of the civil society in a direct way or indirect way. It means then when the people, when the civil society, when the media write and defend something, I think that they are influenced by this media and this civil society when the civil society wants something. But unfortunately, the civil society in our region are influenced by sort of stereotype, by the Western media, but also by the Arab media. And all these media vehicle a traditional and stereotype profile of Arab women, at least Arab women. I cannot speak a lot on the Persian women, but at least on the Arab women. And the policymakers have the encouragement to go against this image because they think that it's the image that this image corresponds to the needs of the people. But maybe there was another image and another vision. And I met in Saudi Arabia, in Iran, in Jordan, in Bahrain, in Kuwait, in all these 22 Arab countries, a lot of women, different, totally different from this stereotype image. But I don't know why. Never the Western TV nor the Arab TV shows that I am Arab woman and Muslim, and I want to speak like that, and I want to be unveiled. It's my choice. And I am part of the civil society as the others. And I think that we have really to demonstrate that we are diverse. And this diversity is a richness for our people, for our countries, for our region, and for the world. And when we speak about the Islamic culture, all of us, even Nadereh now, we have to go to the past. But the culture, the Islamic culture, is there today, and in different way, very modern way. And we have not to speak about what it happens in our culture and in our tradition and in our Andalusia, the nostalgic Andalusia, but we have to speak about our creativity today, our richness today, our women today. And I think that there was a fabulous richness that we don't know because we are not proud of our present. But I am very proud of all these Arab women that I met every day, even if I don't share always their conviction. Because I don't share the conviction that we are monolithic and we are all the same. Under the veil or under the burqa, there was very, very modern women. And I think that we have to go behind and beyond this veil and this burqa, and also behind my modern image. I am maybe very traditional. And I like the couscous and so on and so on. And I think that this richness and this bricolage of culture is something very important. And when I met Haleh, I know that she's from my world, even if she has a very Chanel costume and very... I think that it is this sort of things made the modern culture today of the modern women in our region, and I think that really we want to think about. Now, we built some scientific evidence. We want to demonstrate that we can have very nice leaflet and prospectus and everything as you have here in US. You have some, and maybe our communication officer take photo, but has also very nice leaflet because we want to show that we can do exactly the same. And maybe sometimes not for you, but better other things. And
most of the time, not sometimes, most of the time.
And also we want to demonstrate, and we want, no, not because we want to demonstrate, but because we need to build a scientific knowledge and scientific evidence. After, we have to build the capacity, and in parallel we have to build the capacity of all these men and women to be proud of this knowledge, and after we have to disseminate and to advocate based on this knowledge. Means knowledge, capacity building, advocacy and dissemination are exactly the three poles that Kautar has as strategy. And we have some topics. And since 1999, we choose 5 topics: globalization, adolescents, girls and boys, media, decision-making and empowerment, and legislation. And we choose these 5 topics, and we go deeper and deeper and deeper inside. For instance, from the globalization economic perspective, we work on the private sector and entrepreneurship, we work on trade and gender, we work on poverty, microcredit and well-being for women, because everybody thinks that when we give $400 for women, everything is good in the world. And we are working on this, and we are evaluating also the impact of all this economic well-being on the real well-being of women. And all this production that you have some exemplar maybe outside, and we have also the website of Kautar. You can go through and you can ask all the questions that you want. We think that it is not sufficient. For that, we launched, with the support of the World Bank, a network, the ANGED network. It's the Arab Network for Gender and Development, because we understand that this small center, even if we are very proud of the center, but it's very small compared to the needs of the region, to have 10, 20, 30 staff in Tunisia, how I can reach all the 22 Arab countries. For that, we launched the ANGED. A lot of members here are members of ANGED, and we try to spread and to outreach better through this network. But also I think that it is very important to us to have the feedback and the feeling and the knowledge, the real knowledge of the region from these members based in their own country, because they can give us the echo of the real needs. It's not what I see from Kautar, but it is what they live in their countries and in their responsibility and in their daily life. Daily life. I know that something is wrong, but I don't know to correct. Okay, and I think that this ANGED is very, very important. Maybe the World Bank don't know sufficiently. I don't speak about Nadereh. The World Bank. The World Bank don't know sufficiently the importance of this network. Now we have 500 members. Some of them are very active. Some of them are passive, are neutral. But, you know, it's not, they are sleeping, but sometimes we can give them some coffee and they are reactivate. And this network is so important that this year we win the unique competition launched by the European Union for 3 million euros for 3 years in a consortium that we composed with 2 other partners, not because we are the most beautiful, not because we are the more stylish, not because we are the best, because there was a lot of other institutions very good, but because we have ANGED. And because we are the only institution, as institution, that guarantees merci, the sustainability of the project after 3 years. And the follow-up and the sustainability after the 3 years, we can continue. After this ANGED that we launched in 2002, we launched also the GERPA, the gender mainstreaming in economic research, because when we look to the evidence that we built, we understand very soon that there was really a need to have more economic research, and also because the World Bank cannot help in the other field. They can help in the economic sphere, and we ask them to help where they are the best. I cannot ask them to build and to help in another field that they have not the mandate. And for that, it's not mean that we don't have another GERPA in sociology or in psychology, but for our partnership with the World Bank, we enter in this economic sphere, and I think that it is very important. Last thing that I want to say, I want to react on what Nadereh said, because I like the dialogue. There was something that I want to launch in the debate and in the discussion. Because after all, thank you, Halle, you provide us a forum to discuss and to improve more what we are saying. Sometimes we think that the economic empowerment, the economic growth can be followed by the economic empowerment for women, and also every person and every institution, especially the institution, UNESCO, World Bank, and so on, think that the education is the key. And if you have a lot of women educated, they are empowered. I said yes and no. Why? Because the World Bank generally speak about the quantitative data, and when they speak on qualitative, they speak about technical skills, economic skills, finance skills. But my point is, what is the contents of this education? We have high level of education. We have women diplômés, yes. But what are the substance of this education? What they learn in this school and this college and this university? What are the contents linked to the women and to the gender capacities? Nothing, almost nothing. And I think that this is the point, because we cannot speak about education only speaking about schooling and diploma, and we have to go in the qualitative way to know what is the contents of the program in sociology, what is the program inside, what is the message that the teacher transfer to the students. I think that one of our concern in our region, in Iran, in Tunisia, in all the parts, is to study the discourses of the teachers along the courses, even in mathematics. What is the main message? Did the message go to the empowerment of individuals, as human, as individuals, and as autonomous citizens, or citizenship, or they are just give the technical skills to have a very good mathematician, economist, lawyers, and so on? Last thing, the numbers are very important. I never deny that. In Tunisia, for instance, we have 40% women as judge. Some part, there was impact on the judgment, on the jurisprudence, because they are there. 40% is a lot. But how is the contents of the training for the judge is also another point very important. And I think that the qualitative studies are very important for us to empower women, to understand what is the gap, where is the gap. And I think that in Tunisia, for instance, I always said men is modernized better than other Arab countries. Through the story of Tunisia, the political constitution of Tunisia, because maybe we have only public schools, we have not private schools, maybe because we have one program, and in this program we can control more. It's sometimes maybe we tailor in better way since at least the last decades, and like that we can have men and women educated in the same way, not discriminated by education. And because they are not discriminated since the garden children until the university, they are together in the same place in the same table, I think that it makes difference if you compare with some other Arab countries, at least. I think that this discussion and this common life between men and women conduct to the recognition of that women are exactly the same than men on the human rights and human needs. I think that this Angel, for instance, and the 2 days workshop, because we have men and women, it's more rich than if we have only women. Mm-hmm. And I think that in our countries and in our region, we need to involve more and more men in our work. And I invite you to have more men the next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Mona?
Thank you very much. I'd like to start by thanking Nadereh and my dear friend Soukeina, both of them, in fact, are very dear friends, for giving me the opportunity to talk to you today. After listening to both of them, I wonder what I am going to be saying that is going to add anything that makes sense to their intervention. So being a university professor, I'm going to be very systematic, and I'm going to be tackling the topic that I want to talk about, namely the Arab women, by following this outline. First, what is the profile of the Arab women as perceived in the West and as perceived in our own country? Why do we have this profile? What are the factors that contribute to making this profile? 3, what could be done to improve it? And here I would like to address the issue, since this meeting is taking place after a two-day meeting regarding both Jerpa and Kautar and Anjid. Try to see what role could Jerpa and Anjid play in trying to improve this role. If I am to start with the profile of the Arab woman, as Nadereh very rightly pointed out, we have a stereotyped image of the Arab women. To us, but here, again, I would like to start by opening a parenthesis. We talk about the Arab woman with an A, as if there were only one Arab woman. In fact, I always tend to speak about Arab women with an E, because even in my own country, Lebanon, I cannot speak of the Lebanese woman. There is a huge diversity of Arab women, and consequently we should be very careful about not making sweeping generalizations about Arab women. And in the West, there is a stereotyped image of the Arab woman. She is a veiled woman. She's a woman who doesn't go out. She's a woman who doesn't work, etc. Now, why do we have this image of women? We have this image of women basically because norms and traditions, religious, social, and cultural norms, have dictated somehow the position for this woman. This is what was apparent in one of the papers that were presented yesterday. And in another paper, and here I quote, it says the family appears to be the most crucial social unit regulating women's lives and employment. When supportive of women employment, it could be a great asset. However, family may impose many restrictions when asked about social constraints to their ambitions. Women primarily refer to parents' or husbands' opposition to their plans. Therefore, we, most of the time, and in very many cases, live in a very traditional society where the role of the woman is conceived as being that of a homemaker, that her basic role is in the private sphere, and if she is to come to the public sphere, it is very important that she doesn't do so at the cost of her primary role of homemaking. So in that particular case, we're going to find out that even women who work, even women who are active, actually are asked to perform a double role, that of a homemaker and that of a person that has joined the labor market, has contributed to family income, provided it is not done at the cost of her homemaking role. Okay? Now, the importance of religion, cultural norms, and is here has to be highlighted because, as Nadereh mentioned and as Soukeina mentioned, Women in our part of the world are educated. If I am to take the case of Lebanon, the number of females registered and graduating from universities is higher than that of men. Okay? We have 52% of the graduates of universities in Lebanon that are women. Yet, we had only 2 years ago 2 women ministers. We have only 6 women parliamentarians, all of them linked to families that have been in power for a very long time. So there is something that ought to be done to try to change that image of women. Here again, I'm making generalizations, and please bear with me, because actually it is very, very difficult to try to generalize the way I am doing it, but that's the way it is now. Therefore, if this is the profile of the Arab woman, that is basically a homemaker and a person that is not supposed to join the labor market, if it is at the cost of her family, we are interested in finding out what could be done to improve this profile. Now, here I would like to start by saying that despite the fact that we quote figures related to women and women's issues, the statistics that are available regarding gender in our part of the world are most of the time not available, and if they are available, they're not comparable. This is why it is very difficult to say that, for instance, that the economic contribution of women in Lebanon is higher than that in Tunisia, because probably we have used different methods in trying to assess that percentage. Therefore, the statistics that are available are not really reliable, and if reliable, they are not comparable. Second, I think men and women ought to be made more and more aware about the important role that women could play, not only at the level of economic growth, but at the level of the well-being of society at large. I mean, even if, being an economist by training, I insist on the importance of the economic empowerment of women. But along with this economic empowerment, it is very important that we think of her as an element of this society, and that if we can improve her lot, then the lot of the whole society is going to be improved. Okay? And consequently, what I'm simply trying to say is the following. First of all, if we are interested in improving the women's status in our part of the world, we should be better informed about the conditions that prevail among women. In other words, we need more statistics, more reliable statistics, more comparable statistics. We need to be able to draw a profile that would be really representative. 1. 2, I think it is very important to increase the awareness of both men and women. And here I'm talking about policymakers, I'm talking about civil society, that can do something about improving that image of women. I'll give you an example. We are working on a project, in fact, that is financed by the World Bank, on empowerment of women in Lebanon through the media and law. And we have asked one of the top-notch TV professionals, what does gender mean to you? Gender, he said. No to him. You know, he made a joke. We have a lentil plate in Lebanon called the mjaddara. He said, you're talking about gender or mjaddara? And we said, no, of course we are talking about gender, not about this lentil dish that we prepare. And he thought he was being funny, etc. And to my great astonishment, 3 weeks later, I opened the TV. He presents a really highly followed program on TV every Thursday. كلام الناس, okay? And somebody told him, well, we'll have to complain because you do not really invite women to participate in that important program that you do. Why don't you do it? And here he straightens his jacket. He sits and he says, well, you would be astonished to know that I am a member of the steering committee of a steering committee that works on a project that is trying to empower women through media and law. Therefore, this guy, within 3 weeks, had changed his attitude or his outlook about women. He felt he had to be apologetic to the person who had asked him this question. Okay, therefore, we could definitely, and we should try a lot to impact the perception of women, not only at the level of the media, but at the level of the policymakers and at the level of civil society. Okay? Now, how do we go about doing it? Is the third question that I have promised to try to answer. And I would like to try to answer it by resorting to JERPA and NGID. I said that one of the most important problems that we are facing is the lack of adequate statistics and the lack of in-depth studies that examine really the problems faced by women. Now, JERPA is actually trying to do what? JERPA is actually trying to finance economic research that would provide us with the solid base that would enable us to come up with policy recommendations regarding empowering women in the Arab world. Now, it's okay. We have here a series of academicians that are producing very interesting papers with policy recommendations, but we need a vehicle to convey these recommendations to policymakers, to civil societies, to actors on the ground. And this is where I think NGID role is. So, excuse me? And PJ, yes. This is the sorry. Why? Because basically this network is made up of representatives of government, representatives of civil society, and journalists, people in the media, and consequently they could very easily be the tool that we could use to try to get the message across. So if we have the adequate research done, if the results of this research could be adequately disseminated, and if you can do it in a convincing way so that policymakers would be willing to implement it, okay, I think we would be on the right track. And the three of us are by temperament very optimistic persons, and I do hope we will succeed at least partially in making first the Arab women improve her lot, and basically for herself. You see, it's a question of self-esteem, which to my mind is very important. You see, you have to have some self-esteem. You don't want women to keep on thinking, well, it's okay, I mean, my husband is the head of the household, I am the one taking care of it, but actually he is the decision maker. You see, we have, in very many studies we found out that whenever women earn money, they get to have more of a share in decision making, and consequently we have to take the means of enabling them to do so. It is important, though, that this is not done at the cost of the family, because family, as I have mentioned earlier, is a very important element in our society and actually has a very positive impact on our children, and consequently, here again, we should be able to convince the power that be that we need more child care, that we need more support to elderly, etc., so that women could actually play the role that we expect them to play. I'm not saying that we're going to be able to do this tomorrow, but I think we are on the right track, and we hope that next time we meet, we can show you some positive results. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mona. We now open the floor to questions, comments, and I'd like to ask the first question to all our three panelists. Nadereh, in your presentation, you said when we get together, we always talk basically about the family law first and not necessarily about women economic empowerment, and maybe, and I'm paraphrasing you, adding my own thing to it, maybe it's time that we should more focus on women economic empowerment. I beg to slightly disagree with you, because the family law in all the region is what is restricting women's participation really in outside the home. I mean, as long as you have a law which allows the husband to stop his wife from leaving the house, regardless of whether she has a degree or doesn't have a degree, or she would like to work or not. She can't do it. So I feel unless there is a drastic change in the family law, no matter how much we push for women economic empowerment, we would not get anywhere. And I would like all three of you to comment on this, please. Nadereh.
I didn't. When I said family, I don't want to diminish the importance of the family law. And I think there are many players who are actually working very, very effectively on changing parts of the family law, or even all of it. I don't want to say, but I think that the part that really the economic laws play have not been adequately utilized in order to support the family law. I give you an example. Across the Middle East, we have two types of, for instance, everybody says female-headed households, and there are female-headed households, and the governments usually do provide a lot of support to female-headed households. Actually, most female-headed households depend on government subsidies and transfers and so on and so forth, because the women who are the female-headed households, who are heading these households, don't really work that much. In other words, the share of their income is quite lower than, for instance, similar when you compare it to male-headed households. Now, when you look at these transfers, you will find out that the society discriminates heavily. Even the governmental support discriminates heavily against divorced women. In other words, if a woman gets to a point where she really wants to leave, a bad marriage or so, the society provides a lot of support to the widow. And in fact, everybody who thinks about female-headed households thinks about the widow first, but discriminates heavily against divorced women, because in a way society feels that perhaps the widows are more deserving of government subsidies or government tax. But nobody really looks at few people have looked at the plight or of the condition of the female-headed households that are headed by divorced women. They cannot have access to rental space. It's very, very difficult for it. So when I said that we are not looking at the economic implications, is that why is the society, why is the government discriminating against one set of female-headed households against the other female-headed households? So this is what I'm saying, is that it is not just enough to look at the family law, because even when you want to escape it, when you want to go beyond it, that there are other factors, and economic factors most importantly, that prevent the woman from even exercising very, very liberal family laws, as for instance is the case in Morocco now, because of the fact that women have not been able, there has been a net job loss in Morocco in the last 4 or 5 years, while they have been able to advance the family laws quite a bit. And of course, where do these women go if they want to take to have a divorce? They cannot go anywhere. They are in a way, because of the lack of of economic opportunities, they are in a way locked into the situation that they were from before. That's what I meant. Thank you.
Soukeina.
I think that I responded before that the economic empowerment is very important, but the family law is more important, maybe, because if we compare the countries, for instance, you speak about Morocco, but if you compare Tunisia and the other rest of the Arab world, what is make difference? It's not the economic. It's the family law. It's the statut de code personnel. It means that when you have equitable law, equal law between men and women, it makes difference. Even if we have economic empowerment, if you are the head of the business corporation and you have no right to divorce, it makes difference in my daily life. And I want to say that even if everybody are speaking about Morocco, I like a lot Morocco, but the Code de statut personnel from Tunisia, 56, it's more advanced than Morocco today. And Munya, she's Morocco, she is one of our founder in Angel members, but really the Tunisian code is more advanced than Morocco, who is promulgated last year or 2 years ago. And I think that we have to compare and to learn, because we have now we have le temps, la période,
the time frame.
Yes, the time frame. We can study the impact of equal law on the situation and the condition of women. And when I said that the difference between Tunisia and the other Arab countries is more the condition of men, baby, than women, it's because men also benefit from the Code de statut personnel, because the Code de statut personnel is not le Code de statut personnel for women. It's the Code de statut for person. It means for men and for women, for any person in the family. I think it's not the Code de famille, it's the Code de statut. It means that everyone has a statute. And I think that it reflects the position of citizen, of individual, of what you say. I have my self-esteem because I am one entity, one integral entity, and my husband or my brother or my son is also have another entity. And I think that it is very important. I don't like the Code de famille. It's not the same. I like the family. I am grandmom and mother and so on. But I think that to be citizen, to be a woman, and to have all my rights as women, as person in society, it's very important too. And until now, I think that we don't evaluate really all the reforms done in Tunisia, because it's not reforms only for the family, but it is reforms in favor of person in the family, one person, and for that we have the rights to divorce. You know, one woman in Tunisia, wife, can divorce without explication. Without explanation. It's divorce caprice.
Sure.
Yes, exactly.
Tu n'as pas fait de caprice dans ta vie.
No, I want, but I cannot.
Pourquoi tu n'as pas fait de caprice
Divorce,
dans ta vie?
if you want to divorce, we have to pay, and we can divorce. Exactly as men. It means equal.
Yes.
Equal rights. I think that equal rights is very important. Now, coming to the divorced women and to widows, I think that Nadereh focused on something very important. If you want to correct the vision of the society towards the divorced women, because it's always their fault, some part, it's the state, the government, has to help them, because we know that it is this case. And we have to correct, as responsible of their citizen, the state has to take care of the divorced women. In Tunisia, we have a revolution reform for the women who have divorced, because there was the pension state give the, comment on dit, la pension alimentaire, the alimony pension to the women, and after this fund come back to the husband and take money from the husband. But the state, the fund, pay before the alimony for women and children. And I think that it's exactly that you said. We need protection because we are discriminated, and the state has the responsibility to fill the gap when you have this discrimination. It's not only to declare that women and men are equal. It's also to take care on the implementation of the law. And I don't say that Tunisia is a paradise. I don't say that. But I say if you want to go deeper, you have to compare and to study the impact of other things, not only the law as that or the economic condition as that.
Okay. Mona, would you care to add something?
Yes, you see, when talking about laws, I'm not as versed, obviously, as Dr. Bouraoui is in the legal field, nor Nadereh. But I think it would be interesting to differentiate between three types of laws. whether they're family laws or whether they're penal laws, whatever. There are laws that we know are discriminatory against women. I mean, it's very obvious. They are not entitled to the same social security, they're not entitled to the same pensions, to the same health care facilities, etc. There are laws that simply do not exist and therefore ought to be introduced if we are interested in the well-being of women. But there are also laws that exist but are not implemented. And this is where my quibble is. I mean, on paper, very many of our countries sound very nice. Women have the right to do this and that, and women, this is what Article 2 of Law 7510 stipulates. But when it comes to implement it, these are not implemented even by the courts that are run by the government. And this is where my big problem is. I mean, if the laws are inexistent, okay, we are going to work, try to create pressure groups, go through parliament and introduce these laws, to pressure to amend these laws. But what is to me the most frustrating thing is that we have laws that exist on paper and are not implemented. So although on paper we might sound as equal, yet de facto we are not. And this is where I have a problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I open the floor, I'd like to ask Baghir, maybe you would care to contribute to what was said in the panel.
Since you're the only man of this group, you know.
That's okay. Please do. Go ahead. Okay. I think you would need a mic, please. And
I can...
No, that's okay. We have mics. So, yeah. It works.
Yes, thank you very much. It's a great honor and privilege to be among all these women. I'm reminded of the time I was part of a 20-person team that went to Beijing from UNICEF, and I was the only man. And there were 40,000 women, and I was thinking how much the world can change if women were in control.
Thank you.
Well, first, I want to say the few words I'm going to say is I'm not representing anyone. It's purely my own perspectives, and especially I'm not representing Iranian women. They can represent themselves much better than I. Maybe it's old age or whatever it is. I think we have two approaches basically to broad empowerment of women. One is, and I think all over the world, both in West and the East, we are getting over it, is the confrontational approach, where a lot of very powerful women, very well educated, very articulate, have the confrontational approach. I think even in the West it's proved counterproductive, and now they're talking of partnerships. I think also this wave of democratization that has moved across the world, I think meeting a lot of resistance in our region. Soukeina said if you want to be critical and safe, just generalize, so I'm taking your advice. Well, we have now two approaches. We can think more confrontation, and I think it's a losing battle, especially looking at the experience in Iran itself. Or we can try to analyze and try to find common ground of factors which bring all of us together, including those who seem to be creating obstacles to the movement forward. I think if we can identify such common denominators that are factors that bring everybody together instead of causing confrontation, that's a good start. And in the process, you can build confidence. With the new government in Iran, I think it's a very challenging time of dialogue and confidence building. So some of us, like myself, are trying to identify these grounds. If I can just deviate for 1 minute. In our region also, religion plays a big part, and we had a discussion on that. So I've developed a theory of God being very feminist. I hope I don't get into trouble with it. But I say God is manifestation, the greatest manifestation of love. This greatest quality of divine quality has been passed to all living creatures. And the greatest manifestation passed to creatures, especially man and woman, is love for the child. And the love of the mother is far richer than the love of the father, because it is in the mother's body that the child is nurtured. So God's greatest gift and God's greatest characteristic is manifested through women. So if that's, I think all three great religions would not disagree, and if they have this common ground, I think it's, I like to see anyone saying women are less equal than men. So if the common ground I'm talking about is also building on what is not, I'm an economist also, but again, maybe it's old age. I think the most powerful human quality is love. And I don't see any of that in literature. So I'm a Muslim, but I like a lot of Christianity and also Judaism. And they say love, and even love thy enemy. So I've seen that those who resist, if you approach them with love and with understanding, that breaks down barriers. This might sound romantic, but I've realized with affection, when very hostile policymakers are confronting you and you use the power of love and understanding and care, say, look, what I'm saying is for you, for your children, and for your grandchildren also. So the other common ground, I think, is peace. This part of the world has a lot of problem of peace. And I think the conflict is affecting women and children more. And then the third common ground, I would say, is what Nadereh also inferred. I would call it poverty alleviation, where all policymakers would agree. So I also keep hearing, you want to influence a policymaker, you want to influence civil society. But I say, let us reach out to people. That's why in the meeting we were talking about bridging the gap between research, policy, and practice. In the practice, our group was recommending very strongly, and there's a research project that this network is supporting. There are 5 community-based pilot projects. So the research on these issues relates to pilot projects on the ground. And I tell you from experience, when you set up a development system which is democratic, and I'm sure it applies both across the globe, I think in America, in Bangladesh, in Iran, in all Arab countries, when that happens, naturally and spontaneously, women are the ones that arise. Because around the family and around society, they show a lot of more care and concern. And I've seen this in Egypt and in Iran. So I think this way, around these three, and each of you can find better common ground, then you have an entry where you build confidence. So I think it's not either or. You have to move on all these levels, but I think you also must find some openings where you can have a constructive, productive dialogue with love and affection, and with approaches that bring us all together. And I think women can do what men have failed to. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Baghir. Now we're opening the floor. Would anybody like to contribute to what was said here, or questions? Yes, please. And just wait for the mic and identify yourself. Yeah. Thank you.
My name is Nadereh from Syria. Just want to make a small comment on the question that we always blame government and the laws, especially in the Arab countries, for the situation of women. I just can cite one example from Syria. I have many friends, female university graduate. after they complete their higher studies, they stick to houses and they're waiting for marriage. Okay, and when you ask them about it, they said, well, you know, our tradition guarantees that we have a husband that he will look after us and our future families. So in this case, in my country, we have women and men are equally treated. They have the same work opportunities. It's true that we don't have so much promising living conditions, but it's the same for men and women. So how come you as NGOs or with the World Bank now as a partner, how can you go through, what's your mechanism to reach such a segment? Also another thing for, it's only for honor crimes.
Honor killing.
Honor killing.
Honor
It's only
killing.
these events are only in Jordan and a little certain parts of northern Syria. We have many incidents reported on that. It's also the law, they have enacted strong law against this crime. So how can you target women to be helpful in this regard? It's not the laws, because the laws that are always enacted against such things. And you know what the result. So how can you make a lobbying? And I don't know how to address these issues. The government is making great efforts, but still women they don't want to change. I don't know what's their allegation on that.
Who would like to tackle this?
I think that we can go.
No, let's
On this
let's discuss. Yeah, the region, both Mona and Soukeina, do you care to address this thing?
You see, I agree with you regarding some of the laws. This is why I said there are some laws that are good but are not implemented. This is the third categories of law I referred to.
But not respected.
I think you meant the honor killing.
Okay.
You're talking about honor killing, correct?
No, because in Syria it's forbidden. But
You see, I think the only way to do it is to try, as we have mentioned, to increase the awareness of women about the important role that they could play. It is only by trying to educate them. And no. You see, this is not what I mean by educated. The fact, exactly. I mean, they have to be educated about the important role that they could play in improve. You see, we are in a part of the world where we have some very, very rich country like Dubai, Qatar, etc. And in very many of our other countries, people cannot live anymore with one family income. More and more people have to have two persons earning a living. So the only way by which we can bridge the problem that you are addressing is the following. First of all, that this economic need is going to become so powerful that they wouldn't have the choice of either working or not working. They'll have to join this labor force. Second, we want them, though, to join this labor force with a smile. We don't want them to feel that they're doing this because they have to do it. And this is where here I was talking about the importance of networks that could, and the importance of media and of people like you who could actually write about these issues or make programs on TV trying to explain to them, first of all, that working is not a shame. I mean, very many men in our part of the world don't want to admit that their wives work because they feel that they have failed themselves in trying to be really the provider. So it is a change in mentality that is going to be necessary, a change in mentality not only of women, but of women and men. I have a colleague who got his PhD in the US, and he was explaining to me the other time that he got married to an American and he didn't mind doing the dishes here or giving a helping hand to his wife. But the other day his mother was coming to visit them and he was doing the dishes in Beirut. And he said, he told his wife, don't open the door now. Wait until I remove the apron and wipe my hands. You see? So I think the environment in which we live plays a very, very important role. This is why I started by saying that social and cultural norms have to be gradually modified. I don't think this is something that can be done overnight. But I think we as women have a very important role to play because we are the ones that bring up both boys and girls. And we have a tendency to educate our girls, I mean, differently from our boys. And my daughter reacted once when I told her, please help me clean the table after. She said, what about my brother? You see, so so I think it is the way we as women are not really trying to establish this gender equality in the way we bring up our kids, and we ought to therefore make ourselves a bigger effort. And if we do, then our next generation hopefully would be better.
Do you mind waiting for the mic so that just it's right?
You just said it's my role as a journalist to disseminate what is mentioned here. And, you know, I work in my country for both the private and public media. But since you don't have this networking, you said, with the Syrian government, so I can't publish my article in the Tishrin newspaper. And as Sonia knows, I might publish it in the private. Why? Because you don't have this networking. For that, I'm so much keen if you can publish networking, not only with me for just my sake, for other projects you make in our parts of the world. Because, you know, unless they are familiar what is going on, they are very sensitive, you know, to react.
Soukeina, do you want to say something?
Yeah, 2 points. 2 points. First one, that it's what I want to say when when I distinguish between the education as skills, technical skills, and the education as culture and contents. Because all these women are educated. You see, you think that they have a diploma, but for me it's not education. Okay? And for that, they don't mind about their role as actor, as citizens in society. First. Secondly, the network. The network, it cannot be like that. You have to work and to fight. I love and I want to network. But I think that we have to take the responsibility to network and to work every day. We are working every day 10 hours. Atidel Mejbri, she's there. She's a young journalist, but she has no private life because she worked day and night for Amjad and for Kautar. It's not something easy. And I think that our force is in this network and to convince our partner to have to duplicate the good project. For instance, if in Lebanon we have a very nice project on media and law, we have also very nice excuse me. If we have very nice program in one country, Lebanon or Egypt or Iran, but through the network, we can win energy and we can duplicate the project through the World Bank or through another partner, and we can have the same. It's the power of the network, and it's exactly what we want also to do with GERPA, because if we have a very, very nice research on, in Jordan, we can take the methodology and the problematic and we try to adapt this in Syria or in Egypt. I think that it's this sort of dynamism that we have to do with love and peace, because we are also the echo of the conflicts in the region. We are very conflictual because our region is very conflictual, not because we are par essence different from the others. The story knows that all the people can be conflictual and not.
The lady in the back, yes, please. Just wait for the mic, and if you could just identify yourself too.
My name is Anila Doladai. I've come from Afghanistan. I hope Soukeina and Nadereh, I have just a few comments that may seem like they're against some of the things that are being discussed, but basically the question about women working outside the home, and they're educated yet they stay at home. And I'm not sure it should be a focus to get women working outside if they choose to stay at home, because our whole point is making women autonomous. Sure. And if that is their decision, and not only that, that as Nadereh said, the family is the crux of society in our region. And so the family is part of civil society. So raising children that know about gender equality, gender equity, and these things, to me, that is more profoundly important than having them work outside I mean, for me, I don't think it's necessary for the Middle East region, Afghanistan, the Persian region. I don't think it's necessary for them to have to duplicate the West and the Western schedule of mother and father being outside the house as a way to, I don't think it's necessary. You know, it could be economically in some situations, but I don't think that duplication is necessary because the family is the crux. If you lose that, you know, because that really, even in places like Afghanistan that are absolutely devastated economically in so many other ways, the family has held everything together.
Nadereh, you care to?
I think, you know, I have to say that, you know, our objective is not that all women must work, or that it's just, it is to say that, you know, when you look at the United States or Europe or any other country, when we go back 30, 40 years ago, the model of the family welfare was that the father would work outside and the mother would work inside. What has changed in the West is that suddenly not suddenly, but gradually this model came under the stress of not being able to provide for the family, to provide for the family welfare. So as a result, little by little, women have had to go out and work. Women have had to stay out and work even when they had small children, because of the single and the very, very universal objective of providing for the family and ensuring that the family's welfare is optimized. I don't know how, you know, maximized or optimized. What I'm trying to say is that this particular model of the husband only working and the wife staying home is coming under stress in our region as well. When you look at, for instance, people who, you know, it used to be that women who didn't work were very much more preferred to be married than women who didn't work. But increasingly, if a girl doesn't have a job, she may not even find a husband. If a girl, and that's one of the reasons why we have such a high education rate in our region, because girls find that, you know, if they must get that education, perhaps to work, perhaps to be, you know, marketable in terms of, you know, work as well as this is why you find that, you know, this is the insurance policy for that woman, that she has the option later on to work. So what I'm saying, what I have been trying to say is that this model is going to change, will have to change, because of the realities of our region, of the realities of just world economy, of the realities that everybody is going into that direction. And for the society, for laws, for regulations to impose this model, regardless of the fact that whether it is really working or not working, is wrong. We have to provide the family with the flexibility to do whatever it plans to do, regardless of as it chooses to do. And for that reason, we need to allow women to work, not work, for the husband to work or not work, depending on the opportunities for both of them. At the same time, we have also to look at the fact that in many parts of our, this is perhaps where I come to the family law. People think, or at least the societies think, that if you discriminate against women, if you discriminate against women, men are going to be better off. And that's precisely what we have to show, that no, actually discrimination against the women is actually going to reduce the welfare of the family, is going to reduce even the welfare of the men. Whichever way and whatever system is going to induce this discrimination, be it through the family law, be it through the labor law, be it through the passport law, whatever it is, that discrimination that society is imposing in the way, in its thinking that, you know, it's protecting the family, that is ultimately hurting the family. And it needs to be providing the family with far more flexibility, which requires to have much more equality.
Mona, did you want to add something?
Yes, I would like to say that being an economist, I believe in freedom of choice, you know. We have, one of the basic principles of economics is that you have a freedom to choose. My question is, how much freedom of choice do we still have? How many women are joining the labor market because it empowers them? And what is the percentage of women that join the labor market because they have to join, because you want to send your kid to a university and it costs $20,000 per year and there is nothing that you can do to send him unless you work? Okay? I feel with you about the importance of the family, definitely. And I'll give you a personal example. When I graduated from the university and I was asked by one of my professors to be his research assistant, I felt very proud, came home with the letter, and my aunt and my mother were sitting in the living room, and I said, you know, Professor so-and-so wants me to be his assistant. My aunt straightened herself on the seat and she said, look here, may God keep your father above your head. Allah يخلي بيك فوق راسي. In our family, women do not work. Okay? And women do not work. Okay? Now, this is exactly what you're trying to talk about. I lived in a household where my mother never worked. When my mother was always home when we came home. And as a result, I've had a very, very happy childhood. And I very secure, etc. The help that I got was basically from my father, and this is why I say we should increase the awareness of both sexes. He said, what a fantastic idea. We usually spend the summer in the mountains. You go down with me in the morning and we come up together in the evening. And I haven't stopped working since then. But this did not happen at the cost of my kids, because I happened to choose to go into academia, where whenever my children were on vacation, I was on vacation as well. Now, it was not an easy proposition. I did it at the cost of sleeping maybe 4 or 5 hours per night whenever that was needed. But I do not regret it, and I don't think my family has suffered, and I'm one out of so many million women who do it. Now, there could be a cost, but here, and this is where I feel the crux of gender, the whole concept of gender is important. We have to think in terms of a redistribution of roles. We should not think of ourselves as being, the superwoman who can work in an office from 8 to 5, come wear the apron at 5, prepare dinner, and then when the kids are in bed, we read them a story, and then we put on the washing machine, etc. You see, the whole concept, this is what happens. The whole concept of gender equality is that men, I agree with you that God has given us the big blessing of being able to carry ourselves, the children, but it takes two to tango. You see, and consequently, a redistribution of role is very, very important. And this is where women in our part of the world suffer. If you take the banking sector in Lebanon, there are very many, there's a very high percentage of women that are enrolled in the banking sector. Why? Because for a very long time, the office hours of the banking sector were from 8 in the morning till 2, so that women would be back home, etc. But if you talk to bankers now in Lebanon, they tell you even if the woman is equally qualified as the man, we'd rather hire a man who is less qualified than a woman. And my question was why? I was doing a survey in the banking sector. They said because they don't get pregnant, they don't take kids to the doctor, they don't have to drive the kid, they don't have to stay home if he is sick, etc. So I think if men learn to share a bit with us that role, okay, I think all of us would be better off. I agree with you that women joining the labor market should not be at the cost of the family, but if men are willing to share, then it would benefit everybody concerned. At least this is the way I feel about it.
Yes, please.
Hi, I am Sonia from Syria, Middle East. My concern is about women in, let's say, in the Arab world or in the southern part of the world. Let's say in the emerging countries or in the tiers monde or underdeveloped countries. All these countries got women who are, they have problem of gender issue. Why? Because these countries need development, economical development. Look, if you compare between United States and Mexico, women in Mexico, they need to be developed and they need to go into gender issues, which means that if you have an economical development, automatically you have an equal women equal to men, working, having all the problems. Now, the issue is how to get these countries, when you get these countries developed, automatically you will have a woman, fantastic woman, working like men, having the same timing, having everything. But the problem is to how get these countries more developed. When in these countries, women have so many problems. First, family problems, geopolitical problem, globalization problem, migration problem, education problem. How do you want her to be equal to men? And sorry to the World Bank, to Jerba and Kausar, I appreciate what they did. But let's start by the other issue. If you allow this country and you help them to be more developed in a normal geopolitical and economical situation, then I think, I'm not sure, I'm waiting for their answer, I think that women will be automatically developed. If you look back 40 years ago at Europe during the First War, Second War, and the role of women that day and today, you see when they developed, women role developed together. So, what do you think?
Okay, thank you. Who wants to tackle? Nadereh, do you want to go first?
It is necessary.
Yeah, Nadereh.
Yeah, I think, you're very much right that when economic, and by then I have to say economic development, I agree with you, I don't disagree with you. Economic development progresses that women, of course, have to have participate and have a greater role, and of course, because...
I'm sorry, can I ask you not to interrupt, because then it stops the flow.
But it depends, and this is precisely the point. How is that economic development taking place? When the economic development is taking place based on human capital, in human people capital, then of course women and men have to, because modern economies are about people, and but if that economic development is taking place because of natural resources, oil, let's say copper, and so on, there are these distortions. And when you look at most of these countries, you will actually find out that yes, they have growth, they have nice roads, and they have this, but the development, the socio-economic development is not advanced, is not yet, and that is part of the reason why there is not enough equality between men and women, because of the fact that they didn't have to accept it, because they had, of course, always the natural resource income and revenue coming through. And I think maybe that is addressing the point that you made, that yes, there are economies where you have very high growth, very high per capita income, very, very high, I would say, all the socioeconomic indicators, but you have very large disparities between male and female rights. I'm not talking about the indicators. You have very different rights. Anyway, I stop here. It's not development. Wellness is not development.
Can we take another? Yeah, please.
Hi, my name is Fatima. I'm from Yemen. I would just like to make a quick comment. The economy of our region is not very promising, really. You can't really pinpoint any certain sector other than oil. So what are the chances for women to really develop in such a deteriorating economy? I mean, even that oil is not going to sustain itself. So you talk about women empowerment, economic empowerment in a region that is running out of economic options.
Does anybody want to address that, Soukeina? No?
I think that, yes, it's a challenge, but we cannot say because we are like that, we don't do anything. And I think that there was a lot of other countries who start also very underdeveloped, and they are now developed. I think that it's our responsibility, not the World Bank or the Western or any else. I think that we have to take our responsibility to work for our countries, for our region. And a counter Anja Jerpa, and they are small initiatives. It's nothing. It's 0.00001 to do something. But please, do other things. Do other initiatives. And if we join all these initiatives, maybe we can give sense to our work. What I can do, I do my best to do better, but I cannot do by my own, as one person, better. We try to join our effort, but I think that our role also is to exchange information. If you have best practice in one country, I want to take this best practice for my country, for my family. And I like the freedom of choice. But really, really, I don't think that because we are poor, we can have the choice. Even if we want to stay home, we cannot stay home. I speak about 90% of women in our region.
Yes, in the back.
They go to the informal sector, and the situation is worst because no social protection, no transparency, and so on and so on. They are working from house, from home, and they not get any social protection.
Yes, please, and then here. Yeah.
My comment is in reference to the
Mona's.
I think from
Sonia?
Syria. No, not from Mona's. It was basically
Mona.
the comment about economic development is the road to gender equality and gender equity. I mean, I guess I completely agree with that, except I think it's economic development is absolutely necessary in any case, but it's necessary, but it's certainly not sufficient. United States is a classic example where women do not have equality, and there's profound economic development. If you look at Switzerland, in 1971, women got the right to vote in Switzerland, and it was far well economically advanced, even in the 70s. So I think it's necessary, but not sufficient, and I think it's too easy in countries like the Middle East and Afghanistan to focus on
Economic development.
and to look at economic development and say that that's all that is necessary to make things equal. And too easy to say there's certain regions of the world because of the way they are that women just don't have rights. Women across the board, across the world, do not have. I mean, there needs to be a Kautar and all of these organizations in JIRPA for the United States, for other countries as well, right? Because, granted that there's very specific problems, whether it's a post-colonial situation or a current colonial situation that disables economic development and keeps certain regions in that level. I think it's very important to complicate things, because then I think if we complicate things in our mind, it's more closer to reality. I don't know if that makes sense.
Let's take another comment here too, please. Yes. No. Could you? Yes.
Thank you very much. I'm Rashida Hamdani from Yemen. She's from Yemen too, but she's in the embassy. It's very nice, interesting that we are meeting with the Americans to talk on these issues. In fact, we are always in the Arab region. We are always on the defensive path. I don't know why. We are always accused, the status. And this is not the situation. It shouldn't be like that at all. We are partners in this life. But they have to be born, they are born in the north and we are born in the south. And we have different mentalities, different things, but doesn't mean that I have always to explain myself that I'm good status and this and that. That's one thing which I am always, whenever even we go and defend our reports, national reports on CEDAW, we get hammered on our heads because of laws, because of backwardness, because of conservativeness. When I see that, I think the same situation all over the world, as my colleague said, on women issues. Yesterday I heard a report from TV that 24% of children are in schools only in states, and the rest are, there are so many dropouts because of women are working outside their homes. That's one thing which I was really astonished, and I said, wow, what's going to striking this issue. So what we are doing in our region, or at least in Yemen, economy is very important for us. Very, very important. It's priority number one for us. Thus, women are not within that arena. They are, again, nowhere. The men are deciding for us whether it's outside or inside the house. Policies are very good in reality, and just on papers, but they are not implementable.
Again, decisions are taken by men. So why aren't we together with men to decide and to do things? Rule of law is absent in the Arab world. Sorry to say that, but it is still absent. That's why Americans are coming. Democracy and rule of law, and good governance. There are no good governance. We're still struggling on good governance issue. Even in, the Americans, when they come and they talk about good governance in countries like us, for example, women are absent. So how can you have good governance and women are not there? They said, no, gender issues is the last to be tackled. So how can they come and talk about us, with us on gender, on good governance, and women are not, they're absent. And there's always a problem between women issues and NGOs. They think that NGOs is women issue. It's not, it's women, NGOs different completely on gender issue. Gender issue is different. Women issues are different. And also the NGOs. So they will come and they'll say, okay, we want representation of the NGOs, but what about the women? They think that women are always within the NGO sector, which is really completely wrong. So we are really afraid that we are getting marginalized more and more and more because of this NGO issue. So women's sector are absent, and we are absent from, of course, everything. So the family law, as I said, even if it's good, but it's not implementable in the reality. But money talks. Mm-hmm. If you have money, you can go everywhere. You can step on the rules even. So that it's sometimes, yeah. If you are rich, nobody can even touch you. Nobody says dare to you anything. And this reality, we have to say it. You know, it's true. So money is important. So women, when they have money, they are empowered. They can really raise their voice. They can talk. They can defend themselves. So even if you have good laws and you have no money, there's no power. Thank you very much.
Does anybody final comment? Let's just take another comment,
yes,
and then we'll have our final words. Yes, please. The mic is right behind you. Yeah.
Just to add a little bit about, on my friend's comment, I usually heard of a saying among an American saying that the Arabs in general are stereotyped in 4 elements or 5, I can guess. Arab usually a bazaar man, a billionaire. What is also there is another thing. Billionaire bomber, and for women she's a belly dancer. Then you see among us, yeah, this is the stereotyping. Just I want to take this. Belly dancer woman. So please, how can I didn't know that
we have to learn dance
among us. How can you help us to help ourselves not to be all
belly dancer.
Only a belly dancer? So it's amazing how no. So how can we improve this image? You know, help us to overcome this. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's Mona, final.
No, I think I'm okay. No, final comment.
No.
Well, it's okay.
Okay, final comments. I think that we have to comment more and more, and maybe we can invite the Wildrow Center to have other meetings, but to link with us through internet or through webcam, some meetings in parallel here and there in our countries. I think that more we dialogue and more we understand each other, at the end of the day we demonstrate that we have the same concern. And nobody here in this panel said that the economic empowerment is the only one that we want to reach. We never said that. We said that it's one condition between other conditions. Just Nadereh said that it is the window that we enter on as the World Bank, but it not means that Ceuta has to follow the World Bank in only this window, because we have other partners and we have also our autonomy to choose other things. We want, with our 100 members, work on Sharia, for instance, we have rights to go there. And I think that we can also link Sharia with economic empowerment, because I think that it's one interpoint who can give empowerment for women to go through and to demonstrate that there was no one Sharia, there was no one law. There was diverse interpretation. Even here, we have Sunni and Shia, for instance, and we have in the Sunni Malikite and Hanafite and other. And it means that even if we have one religion, we have a lot of diverse rules in the religion. And yesterday, I am really impressed by the conference, the presentation made by our colleagues from Iran. And they said that there was a fatwa given by the Khomeini, by the Imam for the planning family. Fatwa saying that the planning family is not forbidden. But before this fatwa, it is forbidden. Maybe tomorrow we have another fatwa saying that it is forbidden. Because if you have not fatwa before, I have a very, very nice, I launched a very nice study 10 years ago. And I asked specialist theologian working on Sharia and Fatwa to give us some samples on Fatwa in Maghreb countries. We study something very, very important. We study some jurisprudence cases because we want to know what are the fatawi on the same case. For instance, I don't know, a repudiation or something like that. Well, specific case in the same country, the same type of case, but along 1 century. What are the fatwa in the same case, sort of case, in the same country? And we also study the same period in diverse, not only country, but diverse region in one country. And the conclusion that there was a lot of diversity, even in one country, between the region in the same period. What it means? It means that we have the freedom to interpret and to adapt the response of the law to the case. It means that we can adapt, and it is exactly the sense of the fatwa. And now, what it is done?
I didn't give the fatwa.
No, you don't give the fatwa, but you give the story of the fatwa. But it's very instructive. It means that through the fatwa, or through the law, the positive law, through the parliamentarist, or through the imam, when we want to adapt our rules to our needs, we can do that. It's an open door to very promising things that we can go through this door or this door. But at the end of the day, the most important thing is that we have rules, social and legal and what you want, but rules who are adapted to our needs. Because I think that the most important thing is that one person live in one country and felt comfortable in this country. I think that it is the role of the law.
Yeah, I just want to follow up on what Soukeina was saying, just about the variability of interpretations of religion. In Iran, we have had 2 revolutions. We've had the constitutional revolution of 1906 or 1911, and then we've had the 1979 Islamic revolution. During the 1906-1907, a secular revolution, women participated a great deal in this revolution, and one of the demands that they had is to educate women. They wanted to have girls' schools and everything. And at that time, there were lots of demonstrations by seculars, by religious people, to say that women should not be educated. It's a shame on the country that educates its women, and so on and so forth, thinking that Islam would come to an end, the society would come to an end if women were educated. 1979, we have the Islamic revolution, a religious revolution, but then for some reason, women's education became actually quite central to the ideology of the revolution, to the point where women, even older women, even very, rural, uneducated women were educated in the mosques. And they drew on the prophets saying that, it's the responsibility, the duty, of every Muslim to be educated. You have to go from here to China. I mean, China was expected to be very, very far away to seek knowledge and education and so on and so forth. So what you can see is that it is the same country, even still the same century, between one revolution to an end. There is such a huge disparity between the way people interpret even the same religion, same country, same issue, all in the name of Islam. And the issue was just girls' education. Why is it that at one point in time it is against Islam and forbidden and bad and whatever else it is, and in the same century you will have a very, very different interpretation of the same edicts or same issue. So in other words, it is very much interpretable. It is very much dependent on the ideals and the thinking of the society at the time. And here I want to come to what Rashida was saying. I think economic power matters. Money talks. And when we look at the societies that we live in, even under the very same, let's say, family law, a rich woman, a woman from upper class, a woman who is working has a different say in society than a woman that is disempowered and is poor. So in other words, it is true that laws and regulations and implementation, everything, are variable, but at the same time, if a woman has economic power, she can do things that a woman without economic power cannot do, or doesn't have the opportunity to exercise. So that's on that note I would like to close, and thank you very much.
Just wait. I think our colleague from the United States would like to say something.
At the end.
Yeah, no.
Yes. I'm Linda Ferry. I own Advance International, which is an international consulting firm, and we specialize in economic development and international development issues. I wanted to go back to the topic of changing perceptions and correcting misconceptions. And find out what you feel the role of exchange programs might be in correcting those conceptions and misconceptions. I had the good fortune a few years ago to go on an exchange program with the Department of Commerce to Algeria and Tunisia, a group of U.S. businesswomen who went to provide consulting and on-site assistance, sort of ad hoc assistance to businesswomen in Tunisia and Algeria. And in preparing for the trip, I had a number of colleagues who said, businesswomen? Algeria? Are there any? So there's definitely a misconception out there, and I'd like to have a better idea of what you feel the role of exchange programs, exchanging best practices, opening minds on both sides might be, and how to encourage such exchange programs. Thanks.
Does anybody want to do? No.
Very briefly. You see, I think I participated in an exchange program that was organized by the U.S. government, and I was invited with 22 other Arab women and we spent a month in the U.S. Okay, so I can give you some part of the feedback that I got. It might sound very awkward what I'm saying, but I think it's important whenever you have such exchange programs to take into consideration the sensitivity or the issues that are of the people who are with you. I happen to be I'm going to be very blunt about it, to be the only Christian among these groups of women. And they saw it fit to distribute us in groups to go to church on Sunday. To go to church and pray. Now, obviously, these Arab Muslim women didn't at all feel concerned by going to church on Sunday nor being exposed to it, etc. One. Two, we were invited to things that were not really directly related to our field of interest. So in these exchange programs, I think it is very important for the organizers to take into account the background of the people who are invited. One, what are their interests, you see? What could they gain from this experience, keeping in mind the background they're coming from, you see? And I think this is, it could be very enriching. But there is some sensitivity and there are some issues that ought to be well thought of before going on with such programs. Yes, define exactly, and define the objectives in light of the specificities of the people that are invited to these exchange programs.
I think I'd like to close by thanking my panelists and all of you to come and add to some of the comments that were made here, especially from our colleague from Syria and also from Yemen. I think setting precedents is very important in our part of the world. And I'm going to give you two very concrete examples from Iran. We had a pre-revolution Iran had a relatively, and I'm saying relative, progressive family law. I mean, women could go and seek the right for divorce. The age of marriage was raised from 9 to 13 to 18, etc., and so on. A lot of details. Women had the right to go to work and so on. After the revolution, the law was suspended. But because there was that precedence, because the law was on the book, because women didn't want to, yet again, being faced with unilateral divorce. So there was a push by women, and not necessarily by upper-class women. I agree with you. The women who had the means, they didn't care about the family protection law, whether they had the right of divorce or not, because they would get it. But it was the women who did not have the means. These were the ones who started writing letters to the members of parliament, writing letters to the office of Ayatollah Khomeini, Montazeri, etc., etc. So the grassroots started pushing for some change. Gradual change is taking place. We are not back to where we were in the last 30 years, but it is changing. That was one thing. Women got the right to vote in pre-revolutionary Iran. So therefore, once you had the Islamic Republic, there was no way you could stop women who had come in their tens of thousands and demonstrated for the overthrow of the previous regime and establishment of the Islamic Republic, not be elected and not have the right to vote. So in any of these countries, if there is a window of opportunity, if you can pass a law, even if the law is not implemented, it is on paper, and it is very important, you know. So, but then something which has been always a problem for me, and maybe we can talk about it in our next meeting, is that, yes, women have, you know, women like to go to work, or women are forced to go to work, or women have the necessity to go to work. But what happens to the income the woman brings home? Does she have autonomy over that income, or does it go to the husband, or does to the family? So this is something we should also